Do you believe the EU and NATO countries betrayed the US at this crucial moment?
I think it was very disappointing. You have this, and again, look, the president and our country will have to re-examine all of this after this operation is over. But one of the reasons why NATO is beneficial to the United States is it gives us basing rights for contingencies. It allows us to station troops and aircraft and weapons and in parts of the world that we wouldn't normally have bases. NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them. That's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of that's going to have to be re-examined.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
That's just such garbage.
Wait a minute. Where is Marco Rubio?
Goes against everything that guy has stood for his entire life.
I'm curious.
That was Marco Rubio attacking NATO. And it's just a reminder. It's just a reminder that this is also the same guy. Jonathan Lemire, this is the same guy that went to Hungary and praised Orban. A guy who is proudly anti-West, he's illiberal, he's an autocrat, he's running in an election for his political life, and Rubio goes there and this is a guy who was anti-communist, anti-authoritarian for a good reason, and now he's completely compromised everything that he believes on these issues.
Painful.
Yeah, in fact, new reporting this morning about Hungary's shedding further light on Hungary's close ties with Moscow. And let's remember to Secretary Rubio's comments there about NATO. And I wrote last week, there's real fear in the alliance that President Trump is going to, if not abandon it entirely, but pull back U.S. troop presence in Europe, which, of course, would be a gift to Russia. But NATO is founded upon one thing in particular. That's Article 5, which is the Mutual Defense Pact, that if one member state is attacked, they will all come to that state's defense. It has been invoked exactly once in the history of NATO, which was formed, of course, in the ashes of World War II as the Cold War began. It has been invoked exactly once to benefit the United States. The rest of the alliance pledged to help the United States immediately after the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks. So, Secretary Rubio, yes, the United States has benefited from this alliance over and over and over, including that way, in its most fundamental way that no other nation has.
And those NATO countries stood by our sides in Iraq and Afghanistan. There were countries that the United States attacked that actually and this administration attacked that actually had more deaths per capita than the United States did during the war in Afghanistan. It is just absolutely outrageous. I know they don't read history. I know they don't know history in the administration. I know it. They don't know history. They don't care about history. So they go out and they say things that just are not true about our NATO allies. They have absolutely no clue about how NATO helped us defeat the Soviet Union, the evil empire, took the Berlin Wall down in '89, and in Christmas Day 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist because NATO stood shoulder to shoulder with us from beginning to end. And what a tragedy that during the Biden administration, NATO got stronger than ever. And you saw members joining that never were going to join NATO. And it's almost like this administration is getting worried because NATO has Putin surrounded. I don't really understand it because, every other American would be thrilled, unless you work in this administration, that we actually have a geopolitical advantage over the former Soviet Union, over Russia right now. But not this one. And Michael Weiss is going to be calling in a minute. Yep. He's overseas, but he has some extraordinary reporting about how hard Putin's Russia is working with people like Donald Trump and Marco Rubio to get Orban reelected. He's behind right now, but Putin and the Trump administration all working furiously to undermine NATO and all working furiously to elect Orban. What does that mean? Oh, I don't know. You figure it out.
Joining us now, the former United States ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns. Burns also led the State Department's Iran policy from 2005 to 2008. First, would you like to add on to what Joe just said, Mr. Ambassador?
I would, because, you know, Joe and Mika, I was U.S. ambassador to NATO on 9/11, and I really appreciate what Jonathan just said. We were hit really hard. The Allies stood up for us. Every single one of them went into Afghanistan with us. And as you said, Joe, the Danes had a higher level of casualties proportionally than any country. And I find it ironic. This is the country now that the Trump administration has threatened to invade, Greenland. And the other country that really stood up was Canada, another country that the president has contested its sovereignty. The Canadians went into Kandahar, which was a Taliban stronghold, and they suffered massive casualties, but they stayed with us. And so my lesson from 9/11 is, you know, we need our allies, and we have to respect them and listen to them. And it really pained me. It has pained me over the last couple of weeks as President Trump has been dumping on NATO and going after the British Prime Minister. This is a war that he didn't even consult the NATO allies for. And then he expects the NATO allies to come in Iran and bail us out. And you can't, you know, if you don't have these countries in on the takeoff, you can't expect them to be in the landing. So I'm glad you're covering this story this morning.
Mr. Ambassador, Mike Barnicle is with us, and he has the next question. Mike?
Mr. Ambassador, your career has taken you from Beijing to Brussels, all over the world. You've had a career and a life lived as a diplomat. And I'm wondering if you could expand on your thoughts that you just started to talk about. The fact that we have a president of the United States and his diplomats, Secretary of State, who have created an alternate universe in terms of diplomacy and global diplomacy. What impact, what lasting impact and lasting danger do you think they have posed to the history of the United States diplomatic efforts around the world?
Well, Mike, we are the Foreign Service of the United States, and I'm a proud Foreign Service officer, is 102 years old. We were created in 1924 by the Davies Act, and I think we're at our weakest point in 102 years. The senior Foreign Service leadership of the United States Foreign Service has been cast aside. Many of them have been summarily fired or just driven into retirement unwillingly. And what really caught my attention was 5 weeks ago when Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had that very dramatic meeting with the Iranian foreign minister 2 days before the war started, the last chance for diplomacy. There was nobody in the room who knew the Iranians, who spoke Farsi, who had negotiated with them before, no senior Foreign Service officer, and we have many in the State Department who could have been in the room that day, even as an advisor in the background. And that's diplomatic malpractice. And we think about the end game that's approaching, these really perilous choices that the president has to make. Do we take Harg Island? Do we go after the highly enriched uranium? We need to have people in the room advising the Secretary of State and the president who spent their lifetimes thinking about Iranian power, and the State Department is being ignored right now, the career State Department, I should say. And the last thing I'd say is look around the Middle East right now, around the Persian Gulf, in most of the Arab countries that are very much at the center of this war, there's no American ambassador in place because they fired the old Foreign Service and never replaced them.